morning. I'd like to call the May 27th, 2010 Board of County Commissioners meeting to order and ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance if you will rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I just want to let everybody know that Commissioner Austin is on vacation and won't be in attendance today, but he'll be back shortly. He's actually went to find some sun, which I'm sure the rest of us would like to be there with him. The first thing on our agenda today is reading and adoption of land use ordinance. It is the Urban and Rural Reserve public hearing, and so I've got County Council staff here, Dan Chandler, to help us through this.
Good morning, Dan Chandler, Assistant County
and
Counsel.
Maggie Dickerson from
Maggie
Planning.
Dickerson is here to help. We're here to do two things this morning related to the adoption of urban and rural reserves. I want to provide a very brief background since we've been through this ad nauseum. Yesterday we got the record from Clackamas County's process, and it was 5,600 pages of staff reports and public testimony. So we'll try to be brief here at the end.
I'm not going to read it line by line.
No, well, I may have to someday.
Or a dance interpretation.
On February 25th of this year, Clackamas County and Metro entered into an intergovernmental agreement related to the designation of urban and rural reserves in the county. And that IGA had attached to it a map of those reserves. At that time, Metro and the county both knew that in the final adoption, the public would probably come forward with good ideas and reasons to change the map for property lines, terrain features, or other things that hadn't been reflected. So the IGA contained a process wherein the county and Metro would get back together toward the end and discuss those changes, and the county would need Metro's consent to make any changes that happened since February 25th. On April 21st, the Board of County Commissioners held a public hearing and voted to approve comprehensive plan amendments, both text amendments and map amendments, reflecting the urban and rural reserves. Because of the public input we'd received, those amendments resulted in a map that was different than the map that we had agreed to with Metro in February. That triggered a process whereby Metro and the county had to convene under the IGA and discuss the changes. Metro declined to agree to the county's proposed changes on a couple of specific properties. Maggie, can you show the map? So Metro declined to agree to the map change that the county approved up in the top left of that map. That was a proposal by the Sherwood School District for a public school property, and then a property next door, the Beasley property, that was brought into the urban reserve. The county intended to bring into the urban reserve to allow double loading of that road to allow construction of a full-width public road to serve the school. The county is continuing to support that, but Metro's declined to agree. So under the IGA, we're recommending that we go ahead and adopt the map without that urban designation, with that property then simply being undesignated. That would allow the school district later on, if they could meet the criteria and show a specific kind of land need, they could still come into the urban growth boundary without being in an urban reserve. It's a case that's a makeable case for them, at least legally makeable. The other property where Metro declined to agree to the county's proposed changes is the Bruck property there to the southeast of the map. The county, we had proposed moving the urban reserve line to the top of a canyon to reflect a terrain feature because the remnant sort of parcel size there might have been too small to farm. Metro believed that the 70 acres was big enough to farm, and they also declined to agree to an urban reserve designation for that property and suggested with the county that that become undesignated. So we're recommending that the board adopt that change as well. So procedurally this morning, because we're changing what the board voted on in April, We recommend opening a public hearing and taking testimony related only to those two map changes. And then at the end of that, we would need to approve a resolution amending the IGA map, and then we can go right on to reading and adoption of the ordinance. So that's all we have. I hope that was brief enough.
Does the commission have any clarifying questions? Commissioner Bernard?
Well, one of the areas we were talking about was the Tonkin North. Is that not, it's not on the map, and that was a change. And we talked earlier today, you said they just had no comment on that area.
The Metro didn't, the county made a whole number of changes between February and April, including the change to the Tonkin area, where the county changed the uppermost of those three properties that were sort of at issue from a rural reserve to an undesignated status. Metro had no comment on that, so has accepted the changes that the county voted on in April.
So this map only shows the ones they didn't accept.
Right, the two that are circled are the ones that Metro declined to consent to.
Yes, I would clarify that there were other properties that we put changes in, couple outside of Oregon City, as well as the others that show on here besides Tonkin. I think one is Colley and one is Anderson, that Metro left as we had them. I mean, they didn't.
There's a summary slide up on the screen that shows those specific changes that were made between February and April.
Right. So it was just the two that Metro did not concur about. So
Correct.
So we don't have an agreement on the rest. We just don't have any comment on it. I mean, by default, it's an agreement.
Correct. The process in the IGA was that we would convene to discuss the changes made between February and April. The only two properties that Metro had any issue on were, or that had a serious issue on, were Sherwood and the Bruck property. So the rest of the properties, Metro was okay with the changes that we made in April. So we now have today, with the ordinance, a map. Should the board choose to go forward, we have a map showing the final changes, including or excluding or with the changes that Metro sort of insisted on.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions for staff? All right. This is public testimony time then, based on what changes are proposed today. Based on our conversations with Metro. And does that limit it to the list of properties that are before us as changes to the original, or is it changes to the prior public hearing where we made the changes?
I apologize. It's been a confusing process. What we're going to talk about this morning is the board voted on April 21st on a map. Mm-hmm. That map was different than the map that was voted on the IGA in February. So that has been approved by the board. Since that time, based on the discussions with Metro, there are two changes we're proposing to what you already voted on. Mm-hmm. So the public testimony this morning would be related to just the two changes, the two things that are different than what the board approved in April.
And that's the Sherwood
School, three or four parcels, the Sherwood School.
Interest property,
the Beasley property adjacent to that, okay. And then the Bruck property next to Wilsonville.
Okay, so if that's clear as mud.
Yeah. So I guess the question before us is, do we concur with Metro's decision to not concur with our previous decision on those two properties? So
right.
Do we now concur with their assessment, which was different than ours?
Any comments in public hearing would be related to those three pieces of property.
Correct.
All right. So I don't have anyone signed up for this public hearing. From what you've heard and you're interested and you'd like to come forward, if you could please fill out a blue card and get it to Mary, who's in the back looking for people who might be interested. Now would be the time to make any comments on these parcels that we're talking about now. And I'm just going to sit here and, all right. I don't want to close it too soon because this is all new information. So just give people 30 seconds to think about it. And seeing no one coming forward, we'll move on to the rest of the hearing and close the public testimony portion. And I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution amending the IGA between Clackamas County and Metro designating urban and rural reserves.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the resolution amending the intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and Metro designating urban and rural reserves for Clackamas County as indicated on the map.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Lehan and seconded by Commissioner Bernard. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Lehan?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would just say that, can we put the back up, the one with the little circles? I would just say in this regard, I don't believe that certainly for me and as far as I know, I don't think we have changed any position on these things. I mean, our justification, I think, is still what it was for these two properties. But on the other hand, I can see the points that Metro was making as well on them. We were trying to be as cooperative as we could be with the Sherwood School District, for instance. But I think there is another path for them to achieve and what they need, and we will certainly be cooperative in that regard in the future. So while I think we would still stand by our decision of April 21, from my perspective, I think it's important that we, in the interests of regional cooperation, go ahead and concur with these compromise positions that Metro has suggested. And likewise, I think that on the Bruck property, this was a compromise position to, rather than changing that from rural to urban, which we had suggested, that now it will change to undesignated. So that was a compromise as well. So we're trying to be cooperative with regional partners in moving this forward.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
I would
Commissioner Leininger?
I would say that there was submission of additional material following that April 21st meeting, and my understanding is that the positions of board members have not changed based on that submission of additional material, and so we are where we are.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. And we close the public hearing portion of the land use hearing, and we move into the ordinance, adopting the ordinance for urban and rural reserves now. And I'll ask for a motion to read ordinance ZDO-223 by title only.
Chair Peterson, I move we read ordinance ZDO-223 by title only.
I have a second.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Leininger and seconded by Commissioner Bernard. Any further discussion on the reading of the title only? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Mary, will you read the title?
Sure. This is ordinance number ZDO-223, an ordinance amending the Clackamas County Comprehensive Plan for the adoption of urban and rural reserves.
Thank you. I'll ask for a motion to adopt ordinance ZDO-223, urban and rural reserves.
Chair Peterson, I move we adopt ordinance ZDO-223, amending the Clackamas County Comprehensive Plan for Urban and Rural Reserves.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's moved by Commissioner Lehan and seconded by Commissioner Bernard. Is there any further discussion? Well, I think we've all thanked staff and everybody who's worked on this a gazillion times. And so in favor of time and brevity, I'll just thank everybody again, along with the public who put in a lot of time and energy on this. And in the end, I think we ended up in Clackamas County in a good position in terms of public policy and what we've preserved and what we are moving forward for 50 years of potential planning and development. And I think there'll be a lot of conversations after this, and I just appreciate everybody's time. Commissioner Lehan?
Well, yes, I would just add that, and perhaps Mr. Chandler could illuminate for us what the process is going forward, but this is not exactly the end. It goes to LCDC for approval. Goes back to Metro for, again, or directly to?
Metro
just fill
will
us
be adopting, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm,
Metro will be adopting our findings and Metro's findings. Then there will be a joint submittal of Metro's materials, our materials, Multnomah County's materials, and Washington County's materials down to the Department of Land Conservation and Development for review by LCDC, which I understand at this point is tentatively scheduled for October. So LCDC will be acknowledging this joint submittal, and obviously we anticipate that people will challenge all or part of it. Thank you.
Okay, great. With that, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. All right, thank you. Much appreciated. And we will move on to, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Maggie. We'll move on to citizen communication. I have one person signed up under citizen communication, which is to comment on non-agenda items, and that is Les Poole. If Les would come forward. Les, you have 3 minutes on the clock, and we'll name your name and address for the record. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Les Poole, 15115 Southeast Lee, Milwaukee, 97267. Just a couple of comments about the recent election. Congratulations to those that made it over the top. It was an issue that I brought up that was kind of dovetailed with the election, and that was about the right-of-ways and what's going on in the right-of-ways. And interestingly, a few days after I made my comments about the safety issue and about signage, political or otherwise, I saw an amazing article in the Oregonian. It said that the county is picking up all signs, putting them in the recycling bin. And I thought, well, that's not exactly what I had in mind, and that's not what I was trying to imply. And I reread the article, and it was Washington County. You might look at their policy, it's a little over the top. But as we move forward, some of you won't be worried about signs in right-of-ways, and the issue will slip aside. There needs to be a better policy towards how we're utilizing the right-of-ways. And my big issue is not political signs in neighborhood. It's not about a car parked on a side street. Heaven forbid. I'm talking about streets like McLaughlin Boulevard. I'm talking about places where we've got bike paths that are completely blocked with all number of things. And the citizens are totally naive as to where the street ends, where their property begins, and what their liability is. If I own a coffee shop and I'm struggling and I put an A-frame sign right out in the middle of the bike path, somebody goes around it into the street and gets hit by a car, I'm in trouble. And it was totally avoidable. And I, as a business person, had no clue. So, again, that issue of right-of-ways and what we're going to do in the future is real critical. One last issue, and that is about the election. Not the specifics of who won, who didn't win, but I'm sure you'll hear more from the citizenry, and I'm hearing from concerned citizens about the handling of the county clerk issue. The fact that we had ballots reprinted, which I felt was appropriate, and the fact that, unfortunately, in these confusing times, mistakes are made. There are an awful lot of people that are very disappointed in how that issue was handled by the board. And frankly, specifically, I had a real concern that I saw a letter in the newspaper supporting Ms. Hall's opponent, written by Commissioner Peterson, at the time this was going on. We need to be cooperative with the citizens, and we need to quit conveniently attacking people about money wasted. when over here on the other side of the coin, we're wasting millions. I timed that quite well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the folks I have signed up, and I'll just say that the board's interest in making sure that we save money was that the clerk had actually come up with a cheaper alternative, which was not the direction of the Secretary of State's office, and that's why we got involved, is to make sure that the cheaper alternative wasn't taken off the table too fast. So with that, we'll close the public hearing because I don't have anybody else signed up, or the citizen communication. And we'll move on to our public hearing with the board order forming a 35-lot assessment area within Clackamas County Service District Number 5 within the Kellogg Avenue and Kronberg Avenue area. And we have Kevin Noreen and Wendy Coriel.
So again, my name is Kevin Noreen, and
Morning.
Ms. Coriel and I represent the service district, and Wendy this morning is going to do our presentation, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Wendy Coriel, representing the Clackamas County Service District Number 5, which is the representing district for the unincorporated urban areas of Clackamas County, the cities of Happy Valley, and the cities of Damascus. This morning, I bring this item before you as the Board of Directors for the Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Street lighting is required as conditions of approval for residential, commercial, industrial, multifamily developments within the urban area of Clackamas County and the cities of Happy Valley and Damascus. Street lighting can also be installed via the district's petitioning process. Today, there is one street lighting service area for your consideration. In the unincorporated area of Clackamas County, it is a neighborhood petition requesting street lighting in the Oak Grove area, as you will see on the map above. The property for your consideration is area 09-10, Kellogg Avenue and Kronberg Avenue petition. This is a 35-lot petition located at Southeast Kellogg Avenue and Kronberg Avenue. We'll use Cobra lights on existing wood utility poles, and this will come under Rate B at $42.50 per tax lot per year. The original petition for this neighborhood was started back in August of 2009. In order to install streetlights via the petitioning process, the petition must have the signatures of 51% or more of the property owners in the proposed area. The neighborhood worked very hard over 7 months to contact property owners who live in the area to gauge support and try to reach the 51% threshold for a successful petition. Ultimately, the neighborhood got 54% of the property owners to sign the petition. During that 7-month period, the lighting district sent out a mailing to all the property owners who had not signed the petition, notifying them that there was an active petition in their neighborhood requesting street lighting to be installed, and informing them that if they supported the petition, to sign the petition and return it to our lighting district. Through that mailing, we received additional signatures in favor of the petition, as well as answered the property owners' questions about the petition and process for installing those streetlights. Prior to scheduling the hearing today, the Street Lighting District notified all of the property owners in the area in writing of a public meeting to discuss the petition and review the next steps in the process. The public meeting was scheduled on March 17, 2010, and 5 citizens attended, and 3 in which were in the petition area. The district received 5 written remonstrances, which is a total of 14% remonstrance. The district's rules state that the assessment area is to be approved unless 51% or more remonstrance is received. Therefore, only 14% remonstrance. With that, staff is recommending approval of the subject street lighting area. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, questions? In general, what were the pros and cons? I'm sure we'll hear from testimony, but if you could just summarize the reason for that people requested it and maybe some of the issues that people were having.
Yes, we were brought the petition by one of the property owners in the neighborhood, And we went through about 4 different petitioners, and there was a little bit of a conflict of interest within those petitioners. And ultimately, we ended up with our goal of reaching the 51%. So that's when we moved forward to approving this petition. And that's where staff recommendation is that we approve it, because we did receive the 51%. And we did only have the 5% in remonstrance against it.
The 5 total, 14%.
5 total.
Yeah. Commissioner Bernard?
So is that in statute that it's a certain percentage have to say no?
Correct.
It's our
It's our
street
ordinance.
lighting regulation.
Okay. Just checking.
Any further questions? All right. This is a public hearing, and if anyone wishes to speak, I do have 4 people signed up, and I'll bring you up in twos. If you do want to speak on this topic, it would be helpful if you filled out a blue card and got that to Mary. We've got the first 2 are John Masterman and Annette Guariao. Come on up. You have 3, both individually have 3 minutes on the clock, and we'll need your name and address for the record. Good morning, John.
Good morning. My name is John Masterman. I live at 15110 Southeast Kronberg, 97267. Wendy's covered most of the basics of this. When it's dark there, it's dark. We've only lived there since about moved in November, and I've already just about flattened our neighbor walking her dog because I can't see backing out of the driveway. Dark, rainy, foggy windows, you back out slow, you look around first, you still can't see anybody out there. As you turn the corners onto the unlit streets, you have no visibility until you have already completed the turn, and your lights are now pointed forward down the street. But for the first 50 or so feet of the road, pedestrians have to jump out of the way. You can't see them. So it's a basic safety item for me. You can argue the convenience factor as well. It's nice to be able to see to take the trash out without having to pay for an outdoor light. As far as cost goes, it's $3.50 a month or so. Most people can scrape up $3.50 a month, for the sake of not watching somebody get run over on their own street. A lot of the other specific items will be covered by other folks, in particular the lighting in front of the daycare facility a block over. And that's about all I have.
Great. Thank you for coming in today. Annette?
Good morning. I'm Annette Guariello. I'm a 37-year resident on Birch Avenue, and I would like to focus the presentation this morning on the safety factors of our request for this petition. There's a few clarifying points I'd also like to just emphasize. I live on Birch, so we have street lights. Therefore, my vote doesn't count in light of the petition. There are approximately 65 property owners in the neighborhood. Birch Avenue is one of 4 streets that intersect with Kellogg, and it is the only one that's a complete dead end, so it's our only access, and this is why we feel strongly about it. There are 65 property owners. There are 20 mobile park units in addition to that, and there are 19 businesses along the west side of Kellogg. And the business owners, of course, are also employees and those who frequent the business who don't have a vote in this particular issue. Our biggest concern is the fact that this street is completely dark, and I don't know if you can see the photos. There's a glare. Is there any way to bring that forward?
We've seen these.
Okay, those are a couple duplicates of the actual board over there. Should I bring that?
No, you're okay.
We looked.
Okay. Just briefly, the street is completely dark from 5 a.m. in the morning until approximately 7:30 in the morning. During that time, the preschool, the Learning Tree Daycare, provides before and after school care for 3 different schools in the area, Riverside, Concord, and Oak Grove. There are 15 buses throughout the day that access Kellogg Avenue. Between the hours of 6 and 7:45, there are 5 buses that arrive and depart. If you look at the top photos, these particular photos were taken at 6 a.m. The street is pitch black. The only light on that street is a private light that's paid for by the auto body shop at a cost of $65 a month. The other lighting that you see is the internal, if I can stop shaking, the internal lights of the daycare center. The children catch the bus right in this area outside the daycare center. These photos basically are the buses arriving in the pitch black. And in this center photo, which you have a duplicate of up there, there are children standing in the roadway between the driveways, between the open culverts. That is the area where they must catch the buses. By 7:20, they're arriving and departing, 2 at a time, completely blocking access on this road. This repeats itself in the evening. The bottom photos basically represent the condition of that road and the open culverts. So we're dealing with a critical safety issue. It's been that way for years. We actually tried to start this petition 3 years ago. There have been a number of personal concerns. People have a concern about the cost, but I don't understand property cost offset income tax. So it keeps the money in the neighborhood, and I don't understand, the resistance. But
We'll need you to
at
wrap
this
up.
point,
Okay.
okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming in and appreciate the boards and the pictures. I've got 2 more folks, or actually I've got 4 more folks. Wendy Durkin and Susan Milton, will you please come forward, and you'll each get your 3 minutes on the clock, and we'll need your name and address for the record. So Wendy?
Hi, I'm Wendy Durkin, 15125 Southeast Kronberg, 97267. Thank you for letting me state pure and simple, lights on for safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Morning.
And Susan?
Susan Milton. I live at 14920 Southeast Kronberg Avenue. I'm opposed to street lighting on Kronberg Avenue. The street has no commercial properties. It is single-family residential with oversized lots, and it gives it a rural feel. Because Kronberg has no commercial properties, I don't envision the county widening the road, putting in sidewalks. There's no need for that, and I'm thankful for that. The comfortable rural character is what caused me to fall in love with this neighborhood 21 years ago when I vowed to make my move to this home, the last move of my life. Adding streetlights will significantly alter the character of Kronberg Avenue. I've been told that business owners on Kellogg Avenue are not supportive of taxpayer-funded streetlights. It is my understanding that in order to install lights on Kellogg Avenue, Kronberg Avenue was included in the petitioning district with the expectation of having enough support to cause Kellogg to be lit. The Parr Lumber property on Oak Grove Boulevard is now unoccupied. They're holding a meeting in late June at which they will be discussing all of their properties. I fully understand that they are in favor by having signed the petition last year. However, they have told me verbally that they are presently neutral on the issue of street lighting. I've been told that Walgreens is opening a store on Kellogg. This will certainly alter the lighting scheme. In hindsight, I can see that I should have asked more questions earlier in this entire process to better gain a better understanding of how the petitioning process operates. I should have acted better as a coordinator and worked harder for clear answers to clear questions. There were misunderstandings and confusion on my part about which properties were included, which were not, addresses and such. My ignorance of the process has brought me to this point, pleading my case to keep my neighborhood rural. I'm not saying I'm opposed to streetlights on Kellogg. I do not live on Kellogg Avenue. I would like to see those property owners decide for themselves. I don't want to force something on them. In the same vein, I do not want to be forced to have streetlights on Kronberg. Lighting Kellogg would be at the expense of the rural character of Kronberg, a small, comfortable section of the larger neighborhood. I love to walk Kronberg at night to gaze at the stars, and it won't be the same if lights go up. One night in April, I was walking slowly, stargazing, and one of my neighbors saw me, though I didn't realize it, and the next day he asked if that was me out walking. He asked why I was walking so slowly, and I told him I was looking at the stars, enjoying them without streetlights, and he told me he didn't want streetlights, and he's been in his house for 30 years. If you look only at the properties on Kronberg, which do not border Kellogg or Risley, you will see there are 17. Of these 17, we have 9 who are not in favor of lighting Kronberg. At the end of March, after I notified Wendy that I had a signed note of opposition from a property on Kronberg, which was the gentleman I just mentioned, she asked if I was now canvassing the neighborhood in opposition. And I responded that I've thought about it, but no, I'm not. At the time, canvassing for opposition carried a very negative force in my mind, and following behind my petitioners, carrying my own petition for those opposed, talking to residents who had signed in favor, trying to persuade them to change their support to my wishes didn't sound like the right thing to do, and in hindsight, I should have done just that. Adding streetlights will significantly change the distinguishing characteristics of Kronberg Avenue forever, and with all respect, I request that this not happen. And to quote another Kronberg Avenue resident, keep us in the dark.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in today. We have two more, Les Poole and Thelma Hagenmiller. Come on forward.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Actually, Les was signed up
You went
first,
away.
so I know you got up there first. But
That's okay. I'll defer to
all right. I know. You can defer to each other if you wish, but Les, 3 minutes.
Les Poole again, 15115 Southeast Lee. I live, 3/4 of a mile away from Kronberg and Kellogg Avenues. I support lighting districts. I've had really good experience with them. Of all the programs that the county administers, it's one of the most affordable, efficient that we have. My two concerns on that street, because I travel it a lot, is that things will change at the northern end of Kellogg, where it comes in. It faces Fred Meyer's, and that's, of course, where the vacant property is that's owned by Parr Lumber. Kellogg Street on the south end dead ends at Risley, which is basically, as you get to the end of Kellogg Street, if you were to keep going, you'd run into one building after another that's a large store. There's Ace Hardware, Office Max, etc. My point being is there's a lot of cut-through traffic there, and the photos did not give a real depiction of how close the pavement edge is to the drop-off into the ditch. And that's where the school kids and the pedestrians are really at risk. And I agree with the lady that spoke before me. Kellogg is more of the issue than Kronberg. I realize that a lot of work's gone into this, so I don't want to jump in the middle of it or say don't do Kronberg, but she makes a good point. And Kronberg is basically an L-shaped street that intersects with Risley as well as with Kellogg. So while it's all in the same district, there's very, very little traffic on Kronberg whatsoever. I mean, the difference in safety and cut through is dramatic between the two, even though they're obviously connected. But overall, I do support this, and I feel that, unfortunately, in a tough economy, suburban or unincorporated Clackamas County is going to be hurting more and more for protection, for safety, and obviously the lighting would be more of a crime deterrent. And as time goes on, I think it will pay for itself. And it's one of the few things that people living on that street right now would probably support. I'm sure they've got their questions about Measure 66 or a few things they voted for. I'll close by saying how ironic it is that the name Kronberg is involved. And Jim and some others are real familiar with Kronberg Park, Kellogg Lake Park, and the Kronberg family. And it's just kind of interesting. Here we are at the intersection of Kellogg and Kronberg having a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thelma?
She's smiling.
Yes, I am. Thelma Hagenmiller, 3405 Southeast Westview in Oak Grove. I live about the same distance from the area of the lighting district as what Les does. I live on a corner of kind of a very similar situation as to what this is. And we, the citizens on that corner, before lighting districts ever were around, contacted PGE, and we have a street light on the corner that we went around this is before the district, so we went around and said who would like to buy into this streetlight. And there are 5 of us who bought into it, and so I've been paying for years and years and years. I've lived there over 40 years, and paying into the streetlight. The other parts of the street, because it's a T intersection and I live on the corner, do not have streetlights on them, and the people on the other parts of the street don't want them. I find it to be a safety issue on my corner, which is why I'm willing to pay for that. I look out there, and every once in a while, somebody doesn't realize they've reached the end of one of the streets at the T intersection and go across and mow down the tree across the street. One ended up in my front yard when a drunk came down and went around the corner. Kids stand on the corner, but not at night. But my property is their cut through, so I don't worry about that. The problem that I have with this is that the district that you're talking about, really, Kellogg, as Les says and others have said, I think the people along Kellogg should be the ones that look at whether or not they want to put streetlights in. Kronberg is kind of similar to the down the street and up the street from where I live. When I walk those streets, I don't need streetlights. They're not in a dangerous situation. So I think that you really need to re-look at who's going to be in this district, because I'm hearing that it's not the people on Kellogg, but that's the street that I cut through on, just like he does. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. All right. We'll close the public hearing, seeing no one coming forward, or not the public hearing, but the testimony portion of the public hearing. And I will ask for a motion to approve the order forming a 35-lot assessment area with Clackamas County Service District Number 5. And we get a vote, and we'll have discussion.
Madam Chair, I move we approve board order forming a 35-lot assessment area within Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Assessment area 9-10 Southeast Kellogg Avenue and Southeast Kronberg Avenue petition as presented.
Do you have a second?
A second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Lehan. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Bernard.
For clarification, there are lights both on Kellogg and on Kronberg. And the people on Kellogg did receive notice that there are lights going in, and they're part of the petition too? Okay, so they did actually ask for the lights and were actually given the opportunity to say no.
Correct, they were. And there are some private lights within a portion of that street. And even though they have private lights, the street lighting, we're hoping, will act as their lighting for their private lots in those commercial districts.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Lehan.
Yes. Can I ask, is the support significantly different on Kellogg and Kronberg?
It is not significantly different. It's approximately 46%, I think is what I recall, on the frontage of Kellogg, and 54% on Kronberg.
So the total is 50, over 51, 52?
Yeah, we're at 54% total.
Kronberg.
When you add 46% and 54 together, you do not get 54.
And again, that's approximate because it was just off memory of looking at that.
But there's a less than a majority on Kellogg, but a quite a large majority on Kronberg, and the total makes it over the 51%.
Correct.
Very odd.
Yeah.
Commissioner Leininger?
Is there a situation in which if a couple of homeowners who are adjacent to one another and who opposed the district got together, they could, actually come to you with a request that light not be illuminated, and that could be honored, just to sort of protect
The location of the light itself.
Well, when we looked at this petition and met with them originally, it was agreed that Kellogg and Kronberg would be the full petition, and we'd light both streets fully.
We do have, we do have a shield option for those folks, and we certainly could meet with those property owners and install shields on the lights that are at no cost to those property owners. And so that's something that we could certainly offer any of the property owners. And again, with the public meeting, we had presented a layout. We actually have the proposed layout from PGE. So we could certainly do that at your direction. And we've kind of had some of that discussion with some of the folks already that, we could certainly talk to those people and say, would it be helpful if we could put a shield up that would cause that there's not that extra backlight that comes out, and those shields are easily to be installed. We get those requests very frequently from citizens. So, but as far as the street lighting, it's really the policy of the street lighting district that when we do a petition like this, and we had another petition before you a few months ago, from a safety standpoint and everything else, it's that consistency of lighting, of rather than going from light to dark and light to dark on a street, that we actually do entire street sections. And that's just been the policy of how we've handled petitions in the past. So we don't kind of get into that, those folks, and then, light and dark and a light here, not a light there.
I think one of the things that this board, and Kevin, you've made clear, is that we have a very limited set of lights types that we can talk to PGE about, even though we've had discussions about, dark sky initiatives, and, I think, I don't know if Folsonville did it, but I know like Oswego adopted a dark skies initiative, and specifically have requested, different ways. We've changed out a lot of our lights in the parking areas in the public sector so that it's not shining in people's windows, but also so that it's it's actually illuminating where it's supposed to illuminate, not go up into the atmosphere and tell the Martians where we are. But I think what we're trying to weigh here is the safety, security of the neighborhood, along with keeping that rural neighborhood feeling. And what you're saying is that we can try and at least mitigate some of that feeling, especially into people's properties, if they feel it's too light. So I think that it's a compromise, especially when you've got these safety issues, how you deal with it. Commissioner Leininger? Lehan?
So you would be meeting with the individual property owners on this question about shielding?
Yeah.
Correct. Anybody that has interest in that, we'd be happy to let them know that that's something we can offer them at no additional cost.
They would need to contact you between now and when, or you will be contacting them as you go? How does that work?
We can make contact with them. We could do a mailing to let them know that we've, moved forward and we're going to, put the plan forward, and we can offer them the opportunity to have the shield. And if they could contact us probably within a 2-week time frame, then that would be something we'd move forward and offer them.
Okay. Yeah, well, that would seem like a good idea if we
Yeah.
did a mailing to.
Speaking from personal experience, my husband and I lived with 10 years of the light shining in our window and just lived with it, complaining. Then somebody said, well, why don't you ask for a shield? We got the shield, and we're like, whoa, that's awesome. So it does work. Anyway, from personal experience. Any further discussion? Yeah, Commissioner Bernard.
Well, when I was in high school, a kid I went to high school with was killed walking down Fuller Road because somebody fought many years street lights going up and sidewalks, as a matter of fact. And so the minute I saw the school buses, I was pretty convinced that this is the right thing to do. And safety is what, somebody has to die before we put a street light up. We've done something wrong. So I will be voting in favor of this.
All right, I will... all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved with further direction to do the mailing and let people know that this is an option. And very much appreciate everybody coming in today and understand the balance of issues that come up with a lighting district. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to our discussion item, we have next approval of a contract with OTAC for engineering consultant services for the Sunnybrook West Extension Project. And we have Dan Johnson and Mike Besner from staff to come up and do a quick presentation. While they're coming up, I just want to give a little background on this as they get prepared. This item is kind of the extension of a next steps in terms of trying to answer questions that have been raised for the past 3 years on a specific issue of how do we grow, and I'm going to generalize this, how do we grow the Clackamas Town Center regional area? How do we get more jobs? How do we get more services? And how do we get more housing into the Clackamas Town Center area so that we can, which is the whole 2040 growth concept, so that we can make sure that we minimize impacts to neighborhoods and other natural areas, especially those natural areas and ag communities outside of the urban growth boundary. And so a lot of these discussions are kind of centered around that type of policy question. And over the last 3 years, myself personally involved in this project along with the staff and then the new board, we've heard a lot of concerns within the area of how do we balance all the issues of growth and conservation. And I think that because of all the questions that have been raised, we have said, listen, we need to be able to answer some of these questions, and we need to know how to mitigate them, and we need to raise the bar in how we do projects, how we do road construction, how we do road projects. And so a lot of the concerns that I heard way back when we were looking at an environmental impact statement to do a 5-lane Sunnybrook extension using federal money, or in the hopes of using federal money, which we decided not to do, is that we heard that there were definitely traffic delays within the area, especially at 82nd and Harmony. We heard that we need to minimize environmental impacts. We heard that we need to reduce any neighborhood impacts. We heard that the EIS process was too complicated and too constraining and forcing us in a direction that would have essentially had us overbuilding. And we need to coordinate with the Harmony campus vision. And so when I got involved, the staff actually said, the EIS process the environmental impact statement process with the federal government is too constraining and is taking us in a different direction than what we would really like to go in. So why don't we take it out of the federal process and just use county resources to do the project, and then we can actually control the look, the feel, the discussion that we have about the project. And out of that became a reduced width of the road from a 5-lane to a 2-lane. Adjustments to enhance the environment were discussed. A roundabout was introduced so that we could make sure that we're doing traffic calming before people got to the neighborhood coming from the town center area in, and we wanted to make sure that we sought ways to reduce all the environmental impacts working forward and increase partnership with those who are trying to build in that area, and also those who are trying to work within the park to clean up an area that has slowly been rejuvenating itself over time and coming back to life as a natural area. So that is really the reason why this is on the agenda today, is to hear from staff what the next steps are, but also to, under testimony, to make sure that we have the full list of issues so that we can ask the right questions, so that we can get the right answers, so that we can have the next step in the conversation. And so I just really appreciate staff moving forward and proposing such a great process that we're going to go through today on how to get to those answers. And that was a really long-winded introduction for me.
Actually, that was my
the engineer.
First page
So thank you.
Good morning.
Dan, I'll hand it over to you.
In all honesty, those were all topics that I had meant to bring to the board's attention. Obviously, there's a lot of history regarding the specific area. There's a lot of passionate discussion regarding it. We're here today to find out answers, specific answers to a lot of the questions that we're getting asked and answers we can't provide now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Mike Besner, here to my left, to discuss some of the specifics of the contract that are before you today. And then I'm going to follow up at the very end and discuss, the fact that we're going to continue with the public process and kind of outline that process for you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Besner, our engineering manager.
Hi.
Good morning.
So the contract before you is with OTEC. They're the company that worked with staff and the public all throughout the EIS process that we did go through. They're familiar with the project. They can hit the ground running. The contract does all the standard elements you'd expect to see in a contract of this type, with a few additions that maybe we don't normally do. One of which is prioritizing upfront a tree impact assessment, which would include, there'd be an arborist and other professionals involved, defining significant trees, delineating their locations, conducting a health assessment, overlaying the plan to determine what the actual impacts to the trees are, and outline different mitigation opportunities should they be needed. There's other preliminary work also that's environmental. One is water quality. The sites that are currently existing there have very limited water quality facilities, so we're going to take a good look at that, make improvements there. And then also one of the adjacent properties does have hazardous materials, and we're going to be taking another look at that and how that, if that needs to be dealt with, what would we do with it? At that point, we're going to come back, give an update to the board, let you know where we're at with the process, get a good feel for what these impacts actually might be. And then we'll proceed to a 30% design where, again, there's something different here where we're going to stop. And we're going to come back to you, we're going to come back to the public, and basically bring to you what we've learned as a check-in point. Answer some of these questions on impacts that we don't have the answers to. Highlight some of the possible mitigation alternatives before any final decisions are made about the project. Should it be decided then to proceed, we would, and the contract is for the entire design of the road with that check-in point where it could stop there if that's what was decided. The total contract cost is $1,070,291. And the 30% effort that we're talking about is $478,698. It is more than 30% of the total, but that's actually quite normal. There's a lot of upfront work, survey, all the studies that need to happen ahead of time that make it a little more than 30% of the cost.
Just to clarify briefly, there are a lot of things that we're juggling in regards to this project. And when you look at a point in time when you can get to a point where you're comfortable in answering all those questions, generally speaking, 30% is that stage. Having said that, we understand that almost $500,000 to get to that answer is a lot of money. And so what we're doing, and I want to highlight the element that Mike just talked about, this preliminary work that we're going to do. This preliminary work is going to focus on a lot of the main topics that we've been discussing with the community, the passionate discussion we've been having with the community. The tree impacts, we're going to have a discussion about the stormwater. And again, it's a conceptual, I say 5-10%, but again, and it's not going to have the detail of the 30%, but at least it will give us some level of information and some level of data that we'll be able to bring back and update you on. So there may be clearer decisions earlier in that process for less amounts of money. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Secondly, again, this is not the end of the public process. That public process is going to continue. Right now, in the contract is some public information assistance that's associated with it. We've desired to take the lead in that because we want to make sure that these discussions are transparent. And that effort started last week. We actually thought it was essential to get out information to those interested parties that we're having this discussion today. In response to that, you will see in your packets, there were emails that were submitted. There are a number of written comments that were in support. There are a number that were in opposition to that. So I want to make sure the board is aware that those are part of the record. And I'm assuming all of you have taken a look at those so far, and they're in there for your review. From here, essentially our action is to, at that 30% stage or sooner, possibly depending on what we find out, actually go back out to the community and to our other partners that are involved in this discussion. For example, Tuesday night, I actually am tentatively scheduled to go speak to the city of Milwaukee to update them on this discussion that we're going to have today, update them on what this contract means, so they're in the loop. Beyond that, we plan to share the findings of our report, obviously, and provide those to the interested parties that we've discussed the project with so far. We plan to ask for feedback on the information we provide, package that feedback, provide that feedback to you, and incorporate that in that 30% check-in. And then basically, determine at that stage, is this a time and a place that we wish to proceed with this project or not? So that's all I have for now. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Yeah, Commissioner Leininger.
I heard you say something that I think is important. Although the cost of this contract, which we're being asked to approve, is good. It looks like 45% of the total cost, though it's a 30% design review. You just said, I believe, that you'll check in with us, a third of the way into the 30%, so 10% of the way in, right? And if we hear information that troubles us and causes us to feel like we need to stop, and we've gotten the answers to the community questions that we have, we can not proceed all the way through to the $478,000 total of the contract. Is that accurate?
Yes. And let me just clarify. The contract is written a hard stop at 30%. Hard stop. We come
ceiling.
Back. There, it is essentially a two-phase contract. At 30%, we come in here and talk. What we're telling you is we're going to come in here and we're going to talk to you sooner. Mm-hmm. We're going to update you sooner about the specific issues. Again, like at that 5 or 10%, we will be here highlighting the topics that are of concern to the community.
That doesn't mean we don't pay the 30%.
No.
That's correct. We don't pay for work that doesn't happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
It's a time and materials type contract.
Okay. Thank you.
The only thing I would add is the other kind of parallel conversation that's outside of the contract that we need to have, that you can start having with the city of Milwaukee, is this discussion about between our planning department and their planning department, the land use overlays that we've been talking about to protect the road itself, to protect the open space and protect the development, and how that happens. So I think we can do a parallel process on what are our options if there was a go-forward decision. What are our options to keep it to a 2-lane forever, ever, amen, which is really part of the angst, is how big will this project ever get? And I think the intent of this board is to make sure that it's minimized forever and ever, amen. But
and I would expand that to some extent, because I think we have to have a good discussion, because there's some lack of clarity on whose role is doing what, and I would assume as a part of this process that we have to clarify that.
Right, as a team internally, and then coordinated with the city of Milwaukee on what does that mean long term in terms of control of that area and the overlay, the zoning. Commissioner Bernard?
So would Milwaukee perhaps have an opportunity to annex? So once the road reached certain standards, Milwaukee could be given the opportunity to annex the road and then would be in total control of the road.
Yes, in the area. And then they could put a city overlay on it. So, and those conversations have happened in the past, but I think it's time to have them again.
I've actually been doing this since 2000, so a long time.
I'm a newbie.
Yeah, you're a new person. Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other clarifying questions before we move to testimony? Okay. I have 2 people signed up under public testimony under this discussion item, and it is Dick Shook and Steve Berliner. If you both want to come forward. If there's anybody else who wants to testify on this topic, now would be the time, and you'd need to fill out a blue card and get it to Mary up front here. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Who's first? I heard Dick Shook.
Dick and then Steve.
Okay.
That was the order handed to me.
Pardon me. My name is Dick Shook. I live at 4815 Southeast Casa del Rey Drive in unincorporated Clackamas County, 97222. I submitted a letter that we received from Rick Tell, and who asked us to present his letter to the board, to the county commissioners. He emailed it in last night.
Yeah, and we received it.
And you did receive it. Okay. I was going to read that in because I thought it was a very good letter. He's a Tsunami member from longstanding and very familiar with Three Creeks area. So, and I'm not a good extemporaneous speaker, but I've got to say that we've met this proposal with a lot of skepticism. Oh, incidentally, I'm with the Friends of Kellogg and Mount Scott Creek's watershed and the new Urban Watershed Council, North Clackamas Urban Watershed Council. Anyway, we met this proposal in the past with a lot of skepticism. One of our major concerns has been, if a road goes in, what's to stop in the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, saying, why in the hell didn't these folks build this road bigger to begin with and save us all this time? But I actually am hoping that if this contract goes through, and I'd really like to see it pulled because it's a lot of money that could be spent elsewhere on improving the traffic in the area. If this goes through, I would hope that there's going to be some new traffic studies because I understand that the college.
OIT.
OIT, thank you. My mind doesn't always work real well when I'm trying to think on two things at once. OIT may no longer be interested in moving into that area or are on a very limited scale. And what effect will that have on the campus area? So that needs to be addressed. There needs to be some demography reviews on what's going on in the area, because right now we're in a real business slump and things aren't going as fast as they were going, and maybe development isn't needed quite so rapidly. And really, one of the reasons I'm against putting Sunnybrook Extension through is that it's going to dump on, besides the damage it's going to do to the natural area and the oak trees there, it's going to dump an awful lot more traffic into the neighborhood there, and the neighbors don't want it. The city of Milwaukee doesn't want it. The conservationists don't want it. So anyway, I hope you'll take a long look at this contract and whether it's really a viable step forward. Thank you very much.
Very nicely done on the time.
Thank you.
Steve.
Steve Berliner, 10824 Southeast Oak Street, number 311, Milwaukee, 97222. And I'm here today for the board of North Clackamas Urban Watersheds Council. We are calling NICUIC lately for expediency. It's the best acronym we can come up with, formed last summer with your approval. This may be the first appearance on a public issue of the NICUIC board before you, and I know that we have submitted a letter opposing the Sunnybrook Extension West. I'm going to read a brief part of the letter, not all of it. And the reason is we want to make sure that the public knows that they have a watershed council representing multiple drainages here, and that council does oppose any extension of a through traffic conveying road anywhere between the Aquatic Center and the Three Creeks Natural Area. And I'll read just a brief portion to give them a flavor of why. As an advocate for the entire watershed, we realize that healthy, intact uplands are absolutely essential for a healthy stream system. Mount Scott Creek and its tributaries have been severely impacted and are failing as streams capable of housing salmonid populations, in other words, salmon and steelhead. Fragmenting more of the mature functional upland will further impact the wetlands and streams below and should be avoided. Given the opposition from the local neighborhood groups, citizen planning organizations, and the city of Milwaukee, we are not convinced that the need for this road outweighs the negative impacts to the watershed. Even a smaller road will have a significant impact. Please cancel your plans for a Sunnybrook extension and consider protecting this rare essential oak forest as an urban wildlife preserve. We urge you to prioritize our failing watersheds over a small delay at a few intersections. And I guess I would just want to say that we, as far as the OTAC contract, we believe that such a large commitment of public funds toward the engineering, although moderated somewhat by the proposal we heard this morning of taking baby steps on the 1/3,
shows a commitment to go forward with putting a through connecting road. We would not be opposed to something that studied the impact on trees, say a $50,000 contract to do an environmental study. This would be the kind of information that would serve the public and the council would like to see, but not the engineering design steps, because we feel that commits the public or shows an intent. Thank you.
Thank you both. I have one more person signed up, and that's Thelma Hagenmiller. I'm smushing your name, your first and last name together now. Good morning,
Good
Thelma.
morning again, Commissioners. Thelma Hagenmiller, 3405 Southeast Westview Avenue. I'm speaking as a citizen here for a lot of citizens that just kind of watch the process. I watched this process from afar since 2000, Jim. Is that what we're saying on this? And it just strikes me strange that all of a sudden we're having to put out another consultant contract to look at things that I would have assumed between 2000 and 2010 would have already been looked at. And the money that we're spending on something like that, it reminds me, I'm sorry, of the sewer issues where we're studying the studies. Thank you.
I have one more. Thank you. I have Cindy Lewis Wolfram. You have 3 minutes, and we'll need your name and address. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here just to briefly speak. Cindy Lewis Wolfram, 6686 Southeast Montego Bay. Speak on behalf of the North Clackamas Citizens Association. We've been on record. I'm newly elected to the position of president, so I'm new to this position of reporting for our association. But we are on record in the past few years of opposing any building in this area. You have probably received the communications that have been sent by our Secretary, Pat Russell, and perhaps by surrounding associations as well, in opposition. I'm not sure if they had heard the fact that there was going to be a 10% stop. While representing the fact that we oppose building in that area because we strongly support the tree canopy in that area, I am glad to hear that there's going to be a review at 10% if this gets passed, because we need to look at this strongly. We need to really make sure that we want to lose our diminishing tree canopy areas. And if that is where we're going to be, one of the major issues that we're going to be looking at, and the protection of the watershed, I hear the support for the for this part of the input to this process. But we do have other issues in the county that money can be used on that might be a more timely issue than spending ongoing monies for research. If any problems arise in any of those three areas, we would urge a moratorium on this until the economic structure is back on firmer footing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is anybody else wanting to come forward and testify on this issue today? Seeing none, I will close the discussion item testimony, and I will ask for a motion to approve the contract with OTAC for engineering consultant services for the Sunnybrook West Extension project.
I move we approve the contract with OTAC for engineering consulting services for the Sunnybrook West Extension project as presented.
I have a second.
I will second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Lehan. Any discussion by the board? Commissioner Bernard.
Well, I actually have been working on this since 2000. I ran for mayor in 2000 and was elected in March of 2001. And I actually campaigned against this project. But I'll tell you, this project is nothing like it used to be. At the time, the Cedar Crest neighborhood would lose 2 blocks There was so it was a 5-lane freeway dumping through that neighborhood. Then it went to this huge bridge that went way up Linwood Avenue and would have dumped traffic on Linwood. And at the same time, we were talking about parks redevelopment. I remember the citizens saying, "You promised us a baseball field, so put them down there where you guys have worked many years planting these trees." And thankfully, the voters decided to put it somewhere else. And that area is protected. So this is not the project that was in 2000. It's not the project that was in 2002 or 2006. And it is just so totally different. And today I was actually thinking about voting no until I really heard the 10% thing, because I hope and I'm thinking about going to city council meeting on Tuesday night with you, because this project is not the same project. So those people in 2000 and 2002 and 2004 and 5 and 6, it's not the same project. So I think we have to reach out and show them what this project really is, and then find out how they feel about it. And I have walked through those areas many hundreds of times, just looking it over. And so much has been preserved with this new project, which I have not even seen the new design yet.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be doing. So once I see the design, I'll let you know how I feel at 10%. And this is an urban renewal district, right? So this money can only be spent in this area.
That's correct.
And I think that's important to note, too. We can't go to Oak Grove, Oak Lodge and spend the money there. We can only spend it in this area. And it's kind of been committed for many years. So thanks.
Commissioner Lehan.
I'm still Lehan.
Yeah, you still are. I did it again. I've
yes.
been keeping it down for 1.5 years, and then it came out.
I have not been working on this since 2000. I'm entirely new to this project. Well, about 1 year ago came on to this project, but I can tell you that if I were here in 2000 and it was a 5-lane project, I absolutely would not be supporting this project. I don't like 5-lane roads anyway, but and certainly not in an area like this, because the impacts would be much too great. I have walked the area multiple times and tried to envision what a 2-lane facility would be like. And I've thought about that when I'm in other throughways, like several of the campuses, U of O and Oregon State, have campus drives. When this has been described as a low-speed campus-style drive, I've seen those where they're very attractive and pedestrian-friendly and that sort of thing, and would impact very few trees or significant trees. But all of these are questions that we don't really know at this point. Without the study, we don't know, is it 3 trees or 300 trees? I don't know. I can't say that. And certainly if it's 300 or anywhere near that, if it's over 40, I am too concerned about the tree canopy to go there. But if it can be done in a sensitive way so that we have minimal impact, then I think we have to weigh that with what the traffic impacts are. And all of these things are what we will be looking to the study to give us that information, both on the changing traffic issues, also on the tree impact. Certainly without a tree survey, we can't know the size, condition, species of the trees that are in an impact zone. And without some level of engineering on the roadway, for the roadway itself, we can't know which trees are in that impact zone, or what our ability is to move that impact zone. Because I certainly have been involved as the mayor of Wilsonville on road projects where we moved the whole road over to save significant trees, or changed the sidewalk design, or did things to minimize impact to the root zone. And I do know that and this was part of my direction when we were talking about this in work session is that if you have an engineering company or engineers who are committed to preserving tree canopy, they can be amongst the most creative in coming up with solutions that go as far as possible to preserve trees. And they have come up with amazing solutions in my experience that will, rather than just reading standards out of a design book that says right away has to be the X and we bulldoze inside this space. They are very good if they have that mindset, and I would certainly hope that's the way we enter into this project in terms of how we look at it and what we hope to find out. And I am also happy to hear that we have these early stops built in so that if we discover that there's no way to do this without tremendous environmental damage, that we're able to pull out sooner instead of later. But without going forward and finding out these essential questions, we really are in the dark here trying to make a decision.
Yeah. And I'll just add, on the flip side of things, there are a lot of, while we are in a down economy, it's the time to prepare and have this discussion so that we can build the foundation for whatever it is that we need to do in the Clackamas Town Center, because there are a lot of landowners and folks in that area who are wanting to build out to the plan that we all adopted, that we all agreed on within the Clackamas Town Center area, and in the urban renewal, which is essentially helping them get to that point. So I think we need to be in the best public-private partnership with public to public with our citizens and public to private with those who are trying to build out the vision that we all agreed on in terms of trying to make sure that the intensity of development is in the Clackamas Town Center while minimizing impact, and then we allow for the neighborhoods to be protected and those areas outside the urban growth boundary. I mean, that is the essential policy question that is before us of how do we do that? How do we as the county move forward with that kind of tough issues before us? And I think doing it in a way like this allows us to, I think you said it, the small steps move in the direction to making good decisions at every step rather than getting too far out ahead of ourselves with an EIS that's in a federally regulated process that actually forces you to go in one direction and not have the full discussion that we're asking for today. So I very much appreciate the way that staff has set this up and has heard and listened to the community. So that I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and we will move forward as proposed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
And thank you all for coming in today and all who wrote in. I see that there are some people who came today who actually did submit testimony by email, and we very much appreciate that. We'll move on to our consent agenda, and I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
I second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Leininger to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. We are on to Commissioner communication, and before we get going, because I always forget the notes that I have to myself by the time we get to the end of Commissioner announcements, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we do have our budget committee meetings next week, June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. If you want to stay with us all day, almost every single day for 3 days. We enjoy your company. In the DSB auditorium, the public testimony will be specifically taken on the general fund budget on Wednesday, June 2nd at 5:30 p.m. There is specific testimony for each of the other districts that we go through with each budget for each district because we have to wear several hats, but there will be no business meeting for June 3rd because of the budget meetings. So I just wanted to make sure we got that announcement out there. And if there are any commissioner communications today?
You do? I do.
Commissioner
Of course
Lehan?
I do. I would just like to remind everyone that this weekend is Memorial Day weekend, previously known as Decoration Day, when you are expected to go and decorate not only the graves of veterans, but also your ancestors, shall we say. And Clackamas County has a wealth of pioneer cemeteries. They are somewhere in a neighborhood near you, and I would encourage people to go and visit. This is the time of year usually when cemetery associations have been working hard to get them cleaned up and decorated for Memorial Day weekend. And the Boy Scouts will be out probably Friday and Saturday putting flags out on veterans' graves. And I would just encourage people to visit a pioneer cemetery near you to decorate your ancestors if you have them about. But if you don't have ancestors in the area, it still is a good activity to do as a family activity or with children. Just take some flowers out of your yard and put them on some pioneer who doesn't have any, because there are many pioneers out there who don't have descendants to care for them, and your attention is appreciated.
It's a great thought. And be safe. On Memorial Day weekend, be safe.
Yes, be safe if you're traveling.
Commissioner Bernard?
Sure. I wasn't here Tuesday because I was at a training event for, it's called Welcoming Home Our Veterans. Basically, it was a training program for service providers to give them more information about where veterans might get some of the services they need. 50% of the vets coming home are coming home unemployed, and that's not good. So the idea is to make sure that they have an opportunity to get the services that they deserve, and that the service providers know where to send them. And also in June, I wish I had the date, we are actually having an employment fair for vets. I think it's somewhere around the 26th.
I believe it's Saturday, June 26th.
Yeah, at Clackamas Clackamas Community College, so that vets can come in, and I believe there are tables available if there is some interest in attending that. That would be great. Also, I went to a jail event. It was the American Jail Association, which was pretty neat. I took about 4 classes. A lot about recidivism and drug alcohol treatment. Over 50% of those in our jails are there because of drug and alcohol issues. And another 40% are there, well, I guess you could include that in the mental health issues. Most people have those problems because of mental health issues. It was great. I learned a lot, and one of my priorities is to learn as much as I can about public safety. And I'm also on the State Board of Community Corrections, so I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. And they had the biggest vendor show I've ever been to, and it's quite the industry. So I enjoyed that. And then yesterday, I'm on the Portland to Milwaukee Light Rail Project Board, and they have some concept design reports that's recently completed. And I believe it's available at trimet.org/PM. Portland to Milwaukee Light Rail, and they talk about the bridge and the stops, and this is a public process. It's already at 30%, and actually in July of 2011 they're going to start work in the Willamette River, so it's a pretty exciting project, which I was also involved in since probably 1998 when the the other project that never happened, South North Light Rail. And I'm very excited about this. There are some financial issues, of course, in this economy. The federal government is very cautious how they spend their money, as are the communities that are going to chip in, including ourselves. So but it's also a great job opportunity. There will be thousands of jobs created because of this project, thanks to the contributions of those communities, us, federal government, and the state of Oregon. So look forward to seeing this project happen. And there was even some discussion about a roundabout in Milwaukee. I know. On let me see, what road was that? Johnson Creek Boulevard. My concern in that particular one was that there are 4 businesses that would be taken out because of a roundabout, and that's probably not what we want to do right now. So thank you.
Can I just follow up on the Portland, Milwaukee? I think there's some information out there that that came up during the gubernatorial primary that we should just make sure that people understand the facts that the legislature did 2 sessions ago put $250 million towards the Milwaukee Light Rail project, bonding against lottery money that would be coming in. And that money could not just be moved around at this point to other projects of significance within the region. And there was talk about moving it to the Selwood Bridge, and that would actually take another vote of the legislature to do so, and in fact is no longer necessary because the region has found a way to fund the Selwood Bridge. So the Selwood Bridge is also moving forward, and every bridge across the Willamette River gives us the ability to be able to move more people in Clackamas across into jobs in Multnomah County, because we are still dependent until we can build out over the next 20 years more jobs. We are still very dependent in Clackamas County on jobs in Columbia, South Shore, Vancouver, Washington, Gresham, and downtown Portland. And therefore, the connectivity of the entire street system and the connectivity of high-speed rail is still very important to us. And so moving that money out of our project to a project that actually is funded is just information everybody should understand, I think, since it came up. Commissioner Leininger?
I do have a few things. I spent a lot of my week with Thelma Hagenmiller at various meetings, so I could ask you to come and do this presentation, but I'm just going to go ahead because I have the mic near me. I was at an important, good meeting of the Economic Development Commission the other morning, and one of the things that I think is particularly interesting from that is that they were beta testing. They were showing us a copy of a website that they're going to have on the county's website, which is essentially a small business toolkit, or helping your business succeed toolkit, and it has some information like startup resources, financial tools and products that might be helpful to small businesses, special products available to veteran-owned businesses, so special programs that might be helpful, and then even a live help function. So that seems like it's going to be a good tool. It's not available yet, but it's in beta testing, and so that'll be coming soon. I also went to a great meeting at Milwaukee High School. There's a cluster of people who are working to create a school-based health center there, to which the county has made an investment of $50,000, and they're working hard to get other resources, working with outside in. And I think that the group is exciting. The concept of school-based health centers is really an exciting concept that I'd like to see flourish within Clackamas County. And thank you to all of you in Milwaukee who are working on that project. Last thing is, I just found out this morning, I believe it was, that I was approved to be appointed to the Governor's Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission. So together with Commissioner Bernard, I think the two of us care very much about the role of addiction and mental illness in the public safety continuum, and we've been working with Sheriff Roberts and Under Sheriff Ellington to try to make sure that we address all those components of how people end up in the criminal justice system and how once they leave, they can stay gone from the criminal justice system by addressing those underlying issues. So it's really promising work.
Great. Before we close, maybe I'll preempt a discussion that we're going to have next week under issues, but we have a little bit of a fun announcement that we have an organization that's interested in highlighting us on a national, international level.
Yes, we do. Just in the last day or two, we were contacted by the International City County Management Association, and they would like to feature Clackamas County as one of 6 international counties that will be featured in a film clip about progressive things we are doing to highlight sustainability and job growth and creation. This will be a highlight 5-minute film with details that is highlighted at their annual conference in San Jose this October. It's quite an honor to be having this, and we're really excited to participate in it. And we will retain full ownership of it after it's completed.
Yeah, and we just found out
Just
yesterday.
literally,
and-
it all came up in the last 2 days, essentially.
Yeah, it's just very exciting, and I thought it was good news that from all across the country, all of the efforts that our staff has put into looking at how to make every part of what we do proactive to create jobs, but also to work on sustainability. And there are the 3 E's of sustainability, and one of them is definitely economics.
Yeah, the phone call that was made to me came from the producer who's based in London, England. So I'll have to spend at least a month back there,
I'm
I
sure.
believe.
Uh-huh.
on this.
And we'll need acting classes,
Yeah.
of course.
All right, well, that's exciting news, and if there's no further business before the commission, we are adjourned. Thank you.